Welcome to episode 12 of Hashbang TV.
Hashbang.tv. That's annoying me. I just got to tell you that. We need to stop doing that.
We'll come up with a new thing then.
Okay.
You need to come up with some ideas.
We will.
Hashbang TV is brought to you by Alpha Punk, the best creative agency on the planet, bar none.
Well, that's a claim.
Really? They are. They are the best.
They can step up to that.
Incredible. So the first bit of news really is that we managed to crash Twilio. We were inundated with calls on the bang line.
The bang line has been a raging success.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think we had 3 calls.
No.
And one of them was a wrong number.
Wrong number.
Yeah.
The other one was me.
Yeah, right. But it is a good idea. I like the idea of people interacting with it, and I'm glad that you wrote all of the code.
I did code it.
Yeah. What's the number?
Python. Don't ask me the number.
What's the number?
Oh, it's 020. No, it's not. It is. It's 020 33 22 2264.
Terry Wogan is quaking in his boots.
Yes.
Next year's Children in Need. I can see you on there.
I'm there.
So,
but anyway, you can go to the hashbang.tv
yes.
and it's on there anyway.
Oh, right. Oh, I see.
So you go to the web to get the number to make a phone call.
Brilliant.
It's genius.
Mission.
It's the future.
Wonderful, wonderful. So our reason for being here at Hashbang TV is to find the stories behind startups in the UK.
Yes.
And not just London, where everybody believes that, that's where this whole startup world is. We want to scour the country.
No.
England, Scotland, Wales, and even Newcastle.
Even the northeast.
So today we've got a fantastic interview with Paul, who has got the most incredible story. He's been involved in this thing called Twitchhiker.
Yeah.
He's written books.
Worked for the BBC, local and national radio.
He's got a startup of his own to do with photos and games that we'll find out about.
He's in charge of an incubator, Ignite 100. What hasn't he done?
I don't know. Let's hear from Paul.
And he's 6'4".
Indeed.
Cool. So today we're joined by Paul Smith and your amazing title is Director and Program Manager of Ignite 100.
That will do, yes. Thank you very much.
Lovely.
Ignite 100 is only in Newcastle.
Ignite 100 is a startup accelerator. There are plenty of them about these days. Not so many in the UK yet. There's Seed Camp and there's Springboard, there's Oxygen in Birmingham. So Ignite 100 is a 13-week accelerator for early stage startups, and we offer equity and a program, a mentor heavy program for 13 weeks, so we invite teams to come to Newcastle. We're different to a lot of other accelerators in that if the teams meet some basic milestones, so if they develop an MVP, if they've got a good sense of what their business plan is, if they brought in advisors or strengthened the team, then they can also receive the balance of £100,000 as a convertible note. So they come off the program potentially with the runway to see the business go for the next 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
Out of 9 teams that completed the program last year, 8 received the full £100,000 funding.
Wow.
So, and it's not just for teams in Newcastle, it's global. So last year were teams from Dublin, the team from Dublin, Bluey, they relocated and now live in Newcastle.
Oh, brilliant.
Latvia, Estonia, a couple of teams from Brighton, a couple of teams from London, one from Newcastle. We've just closed applications for this year's programme, and that has teams from everywhere. There's India in there, there's Australia, Seattle, Brazil.
Seattle? Wow. So we're having the reverse effect now. People are coming to the UK from the US.
Interesting. A lot of teams from the UK, but also a lot of teams from Newcastle. There's a real movement in the moment in Newcastle. There's a really strong, thriving startup community. So that's really good to see. So yes.
Well, tell us a little bit about that then, because I mean, we always say that we don't want to just be London-centric.
Totally, yeah.
So last episode we had Elizabeth from Tech Hub talking about the kind of stuff that she does in, Shoreditch. So, what you obviously spend time between the two places. So, tell us about Newcastle, contrast it with London. What kind of vibe is going on there at the moment?
Well, it's obviously better.
Well, clearly, yeah. The accent is way better as well.
No, I mean it's an former industrial town. It's 2.5 hours away on train. It's not that far. It's not London. It's not Shoreditch. But I think the interesting thing about Newcastle compared to somewhere like Manchester is that we don't want to be London. We're actually quite happy being Newcastle.
It's got a chip on his shoulder. You can tell.
And building our own thing and doing our own thing. And we're more than happy to come down to London to meet investors and meet teams, and we're just happy getting on with stuff. I think Newcastle has a well-deserved reputation as a party city. Not all Geordie Shores, to be fair. But it's also it's a city of people who do. They just get their heads down and get on with it. And I think that lends itself really well to startup life. So we're not trying to be a Silicon Valley, and we're not trying to be a New York, and we're not trying to be a London. We're just trying to be Newcastle. I think the best comparison, or the one I hope will prove the best, is Boulder.
Okay.
Where if we can, I think in 5 years' time we can reach a tipping point where we don't keep losing developers to London or to corporates. And they say, actually, there's so much going on here. This is worth hanging around for. And at that point, the tipping point will be when that happens, and other people start coming to us.
Yeah. So when I think, so what's the so the startup, the Ignite 100 stuff is all technology startups.
Yeah. So it's disruptive web and mobile startups, early stage.
And when I think of technology and I think of Newcastle, I think of Sage.
Yeah.
What other companies have formed in that technology sector before you started doing this incubation and acceleration?
Well, Sage is the one everyone knows. It's the only software company on the FTSE 100.
Yeah.
The interesting thing, I'll give a couple of examples. There's Sage. There's a company in 2005 was formed in Newcastle called Bayat, involved in the affiliate space.
Okay.
4 founders there. It was bought out in 2008 by AOL for $124 million.
Good.
We have not quite a startup anymore. Palringo is the huge
come across them.
text SMS messaging, very big in Asia and the like. That's all based in Cramlington, which is just a few miles north of Newcastle. Onyx is a big web-based company. They exited last year. And the interesting thing about certainly Onyx and Bayat and Sage is that while they've probably got the money to go and live in Hawaii and disappear for the rest of their lives and just eat and smoke and have sex with an endless stream of beautiful young ladies,
which is why we all do startups.
It's the only reason I'm here.
Well, here?
Yeah, I saw one earlier.
Okay.
They could have all left, but instead they've all stayed, and all of them are putting money into startups.
Yeah.
They're all investors.
And that's the good thing to see, right? Because that's where the UK is lagging Silicon Valley, is the kind of angels that have been through it themselves and are now giving back. So it's good that is actually starting to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of the reason I think Newcastle in the last two or 3 years it's come into focus. I mean, we've had plenty of public money. Labour with their regional development agencies established One North East. But one of the things that came out of that was a budget to create a body that supported digital industry, and that was Codeworks. And so that was created, and that pulled together the scene before Twitter got there. I'm not sure it's necessarily its remit fits as much now, because it's continued since the coalition closed down the RDAs. It's continued. I don't think that remit's there necessarily for companies, because it's done its job, and it's done it really well over the last 10 years. It's brought this community together, and it's crystallised it, and we're very well aware of each other. We support one another, and it's given Newcastle a fantastic support network of companies and startups that will help each other out.
Do you also get that kind of ancillary effect with the kind of, the accountancy firms, the design agencies, the advertising people? Is that kind of ecosystem there, or is it over-indexed on tech?
No, I mean, if you look at things like clean tech, the North East has the biggest clean tech scene in the UK. It's not just startups. There's so much more there. We've got 5 universities up there. Those include Newcastle, which has an amazing computer science output. We've got Durham. It's essentially a brain trust that speaks funny. There's a lot of stuff going there. There's a lot of smart people. So yeah, it's got a lot of design agencies. We've got a lot of the, Manchester is more agency based, far more. A lot of the agencies will put the second base in Manchester, but we've got a few there too. So like Manchester, Newcastle was a place that was one of the first regions in the UK to have regional TV. It's one of the first places to get commercial radio. Not long after Capital in London.
Right.
So it's got a very traditional, it's had a very traditional agency environment that over the last 10 years has shifted to web as well. So it's got agencies like Think, who handle most of the stuff for Sony and for Pottermore,
Right.
for J.K. Rowling.
Yeah,
So they
yeah.
built all of that. And that all comes out of Newcastle. They've opened up a base in London now, but it originated there.
Okay.
So there's a lot going on, and in terms of startups, we have some we have a lot of private angel investors and some consortiums as well, but we have companies like North Star Ventures and IP Group who support startups as well. They have interest in many other areas
Yeah.
of technology, but they understand startups and they support them as well.
So if you had to talk about one from the last program, one company that's kind of kicked on at the end of the Ignite program, who would you kind of highlight if you had to pick
do
one?
that.
No, they're all as good as each other.
I'd mention a couple that I work with more frequently.
Yeah.
One would be Bluey, and Bluey is this really interesting random chat platform, which sounds a bit like chat roulette, but what it does is it's essentially a plugin that can be added to any content-rich website. And the point of Bluey is that it enables you to have conversations with people who are engaged in similar content.
Okay.
So if I went onto the Next Web and was reading a story about iPhones, then Bluey would connect me to someone else who was either on the same page or on the same site
Okay.
or on a similar site. And it would potentially prompt us into having conversations, so we can
Wow.
have those. So that's useful on a base level. But what Bluey also does is it learns about the conversation, it analyses it not necessarily for positives and negatives or keywords, but also engagement. So the guys have come up with a set of algorithms that measure engagement in the conversation. So if, for example, this Bluey was used on the iPlayer during question time, Bluey wouldn't necessarily link you to someone who had the same opinions as you. It would link you to someone who engaged you. So it might link you to someone who had the exact opposite opinions. Now, this does a couple of things. It's good for other things outside websites. It would be good for something like conferences. So the first trial was at a big design conference and development conference in Newcastle, where it was sort of tested on there. So people could join that and meet randomly other people with similar interests, and it can learn and find that out. For the publishers, that's really good because they can then start seeing some interesting metrics. And they can also use Bluey. It can analyse conversation in real time, so it can then resurface old posts that might be relevant. It might be able to contextually change advertising on the page in real time based on conversation. And then there's this back-end analytics suite, which is looking at engagement. It's looking at benchmarks across similar sites. It can tell you if you put up a post about iPhones, but everyone's talking about Android, then that's maybe something you want to be generating content on. So that's really exciting, and they're just getting going. But they've all got similar, I think, potential. There's Blink, which is getting into that experience marketplace with food and drink. So if you want a course in butchery, or you want to learn something like that with friends, that sources courses. There's Art Spotter, which is a resource for galleries and the like. So it's
I've seen them pitch. They pitched at maybe an app circus or something like that.
I mean, Raphael, who is the founder of Art Spotter, is a force of nature. Givey with Dave Erasmus, which is social giving through social media, but he's also working on other aspects of trying to drag charity and giving into 2012. Audimax, which is social analytics. There's Rentmama, which is car rental and aggregating car rental. So outside the big 5 or 6, there's lots of little car rental places. So it brings them together.
Right.
There's Crowd IPR, which is a marketplace for sourcing information about patents in overseas territories. There's Usable, which is a software as a service for project management, which is it's a very different take on it, but it can integrate with everything else like Basecamp. So I think I'm just gonna have to check now that I've got everyone.
Pretty diverse bunch of companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Vibe Trace are doing things around social shopping experiences. That I think is everyone, and no one can kick me to death. Those are the 9 that finished. So a lot.
Wow.
We're keen to find companies or startups that want to change the world a little or a lot and will disrupt it. And I think this time the program is going to be different. I was at the Techstars demo day in New York, and Techstars is enormous now. It rules accelerators, and just on the basis of its legacy and its history, half the teams that demoed had already done deals before they got to that point.
Oh, really?
There's maybe 100 investors there in the audience as well to see them. But I think what came out of that for me is that the accelerators have to focus on partnerships, because it doesn't matter how original your startup is, the chances are there's another half a dozen in the world working on the same thing that you just don't know about. And so the technology will only be so much of a difference at that stage. What's really going to make the difference is partnerships. Can you get into the channels that can take your product mainstream? And so for me this year, that's the big challenge. It's to once we've chosen the teams, it's to find those partnerships that can really leverage what they're trying to do.
And that's come up a number of times on these shows, hasn't it? It's the networking, it's who you know, getting the right contacts, not just having great tech.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It comes up time and time again.
Always it's about distribution. Yeah.
Right, we've got to let you go.
Yes, yes, you must go.
I've got people to see and things to do.
More interesting things to do.
Yeah,
Far
no
more
diggity.
More interesting.
Well, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks
I told
very
you
much.
wouldn't disappoint.
Oh, unbelievable. Thank you very much.
Come back on when the book's out.
He's touching me under the table.
I've been seeing that for a long time. Right, well, thanks for coming on. It's
Thank
been
you.
a pleasure.
Cheers, guys.
See you soon. So we delivered. Paul was great.
Excellent.
There's just too much stuff to talk about. So we have to try and run it to at least some kind of deadline. So you should definitely check out the podcast, because there's so much stuff that you need to hear from Paul.
I don't know if the bit about him threatening to kill me was...
Oh, that would have been awesome if we'd had the fight on camera. Can we not do that?
I don't think he knows that I'm a second dan in Taekwondo, though. So
yeah, but that's kind
6
of...
foot
That's
4
like...
and
Yeah,
massive.
you reckon you could take him?
I'm not saying that, because he
Sounds
might
like-
be coming back.
It sounds like you're throwing out a challenge.
No,
Paul,
not
if you're
at all.
watching this,
we're
can
not
you come back in a couple of weeks' time and beat the crap out of Chris? That'd be fucking brilliant.
No, it's all right. I'm travelling around America for a month, so I'm not going to be...
Oh no, you're taking the piss out of him. You're fanning the flames.
Excellent.
I can't wait for that.
What a
That's
great interview. What a stunning story. Fantastic. Nice to see you wearing the same old t-shirt again.
I've never worn this
LA
t-shirt.
Raiders, whatever they're called.
Oakland Raiders.
Yeah.
I've never worn this.
Oh, okay.
Never.
Nice. Looks like you have.
I
Before.
will be going around on the second time though. But at least I've made the effort. Where's your Stone Roses t-shirt? You've been banging on about going to see the Stone Roses.
She bangs the drum. I brought my Stone Roses t-shirt and I left it somewhere else. So
You're
it's
good
gonna
at
have
leaving
to.
stuff everywhere, aren't you?
Yeah, it seems to be a special skill I have,
Yeah.
leaving stuff everywhere. But I will be wearing my Stone Roses t-shirt for the next episode.
Okay, we'll look forward to that.
So yeah, we need to find a guest.
Yeah, we've got plenty of guests. Don't worry.
Ring the bang line.
Yeah, good luck with that. So, till next time then.
Yeah, another one in the bag.
Yeah.
Episode 12.